My name is Isaiah Thomas. I am 70 years old, and for the last 40 of those years I've lived a lie. My son-in-law Trevor is pushing me through O'Hare Airport in a wheelchair I absolutely do not need. Just for safety, Dad, he says, his voice slick and smooth. My daughter Naomi, his wife, walks beside us, her eyes glued to her phone, those long, perfect nails that I paid for tap-tap-tapping on the glass. They think they're giving me a surprise retirement trip. They think I'm just a tired old man, a retired mechanic from the South Side with a small pension and a paid-off house. They think I'm weak. They think I'm a burden they finally get to manage. Before I tell you what happened next, what that brave flight attendant whispered in my ear, let me know in the comments where you are watching this story from. And please hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with family who thought you were a fool. We get to the gate. Trevor wheels me onto the jet bridge. It's a one-way ticket to Arizona. They didn't ask me if I wanted to go. They just packed my bags and told me this morning. "It's all taken care of," Naomi had chirped, not even looking up. At the plane door, a young flight attendant named Tiana leans down pretending to check my seatbelt. Trevor is just ahead, shoving a carry-on into the overhead bin, his back to us. Tiana's face is pale. She looks terrified. She leans in close, her breath warm against my ear, and whispers so fast I almost think I dreamed it. "Pretend you're sick. Get off this plane. Run." I freeze. My blood turns to ice. Trevor turns around, smiling, that fake wide smile. "Everything okay here?" Tiana stands up straight, her voice shaking only slightly. "Yes, sir. Just making sure your father is comfortable." As Trevor fusses with his coat, she leans back down, offering me a cup of water I didn't ask for. Her hand is trembling. "Please," she whispers again, her eyes begging me. "I beg you. I heard them talking at the gate. It's a one-way trip. They said they're not letting you come back." My mind clears. The confusion is gone. 40 years of pretending, of observing, of staying silent. It all comes down to this single moment. As Trevor finally turns to find his own seat, I grab my chest. I let out a gasp that sounds real even to me. "I can't breathe." I force out my voice, a broken rattle. "My heart," Naomi screams. Trevor curses his mask of the caring son-in-law, instantly shattering into raw anger. 30 minutes later, I'm in the airport's medical station, paramedics hovering over me. And my daughter and son-in-law are on the other side of a security door, furious, screaming at an agent that they've missed their flight. I am safe, for now. I'm on a cot in the airport medical station. The paper sheet crackles every time I breathe. A young paramedic is checking my blood pressure for the third time. "Your vitals are stable, Mr. Thomas. A little high, but there's no sign of a cardiac event. You're lucky." I hear pounding on the metal door. "He is my father. He is confused. You have to let us in." That's Naomi, my daughter. Her voice isn't filled with worry. It's filled with pure, unfiltered anger. A deep voice rumbles back from the other side. "Ma'am, he needs to be evaluated in peace. Your flight has already been rebooked. Please wait in the main terminal." I keep my eyes closed, letting my breathing stay shallow. I am playing the part of a frail, confused old man. The part they wrote for me. "I need to call someone," I whisper to the paramedic. "My son." The paramedic looks at me with pity. He sees exactly what they want him to see. An old man confused, being hassled by his frantic family. He hands me his personal cell phone. "Of course. Take your time. We'll keep them out." I nod weakly. My hands tremble as I take the phone, but it's not from fear, it's from adrenaline. I don't dial Naomi, I don't dial 911. I dial a number I know better than my own name. 1 ring, 2. He picks up. "Right?" His voice is sharp, precise. "Julian?" I whisper, my voice cracking just enough. "It's me. Activate the rainy day protocol." There is no pause, no questions. "Understood, Mr. Thomas. The car is 10 minutes out. Your exit is the south utility corridor. I am moving on the accounts now." I hang up. I hand the phone back to the paramedic. "Thank you. He didn't pick up." The paramedic pats my shoulder. "It's all right. You just rest." I close my eyes. The game is on. A different nurse wheels me out 20 minutes later. "We're taking him for a quick x-ray just to be safe." She lies smoothly to the security guard. We don't go to x-ray. We go down a concrete service hallway past laundry bins and staff break rooms. We exit through a steel door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." The Chicago air is cold, a shock after the stuffy airport. A black sedan, polished but unremarkable, idles at the curb. No logos, no limousine flash, just quiet efficiency. The driver steps out and opens the back door. "Mr. Thomas, we've been expecting you." I stand up from the wheelchair. My back, which I had kept hunched in a pathetic 70-year-old curve, straightens. I am 70, but I am not frail. The driver doesn't blink. He takes the empty wheelchair from the nurse and folds it. "The paramedics were compensated for their discretion," he says quietly. I nod and get in the car. We pull away from the curb just as I see Trevor and Naomi burst through the main terminal doors, looking around frantically. They don't even glance at this simple black car. Why would they? Their poor old dad couldn't possibly afford a private driver. The car does not head south. It does not head toward my little brick bungalow in the Chatham neighborhood. It does not go to the home I've lived in for 40 years, the one they were so eager to sell, the one they thought was my only asset. We drive north, along the lake. We pull into the private, heavily secured underground garage of Lake Point Tower. We take the private elevator. The doors open not into a lobby, but directly into the penthouse. The entire skyline of Chicago spreads out before me through 30 feet of floor-to-ceiling glass. And standing there silhouetted against Lake Michigan is Julian Wright. He is in an impeccably tailored suit, a stark contrast to my worn travel clothes. "Mr. Thomas," he says with a slight bow, "I am relieved to see you are unharmed. The rainy day protocol is active." "Thank you, Julian," I say. I pull the cheap, scratchy tie from my neck, the one Naomi bought me for Christmas. "They got sloppy. They got greedy." Julian just nods. "They always do, sir." I walk to the window. Down below, the city moves unaware. My daughter Naomi, she thinks I'm a fool. She thinks I'm the simple mechanic who spent his life covered in grease, a man who got lucky with a paid-off house. She doesn't know who I am. She doesn't know who her mother, my Serena, was. Serena and I, we saw what new money did to our families back in Alabama. We saw it tear brothers apart. We saw it poison everything it touched. So when I bought my first commercial property in 1983, a rundown garage in the West Loop that no one wanted, we made a pact. We would live simply. We would raise Naomi to value hard work, not handouts. We stayed in the South Side bungalow. I kept the mechanic's overalls. Serena kept her nurse's uniform. It was the best camouflage in the world. We taught our daughter that dignity came from labor, not from leisure. I thought I was protecting her. I see now I was just hiding the target. I was so busy teaching her the value of $1, I forgot to teach her the danger of loving them too much. Julian interrupts my thoughts. He's holding a tablet. "Sir, the preliminary financials you asked for." I turn from the window. "How bad is the damage? Did they find the real accounts?" Julian shakes his head. "They haven't touched the real accounts, sir. They don't even know they exist. They were fighting over scraps. As of this morning, your total net worth, liquid and assets combined, is $35,400,000. I let the number settle in the air. 35 million. And they tried to bury me in an Arizona nursing home for a one-way ticket and a paid-off house. "Julian," I say, my voice cold and clear, "they were panicked. It wasn't just about the house. I want to know why they were in such a hurry. Find out what they're running from." Julian didn't need to check. He simply tapped his tablet and a document appeared on the massive screen disguised as a mirror on the penthouse wall. "They were in a hurry, Mr. Thomas, because they weren't just planning to steal from you," he said. "They had already started." My gaze hardened. "Show me." Julian enlarged a document. It was a standard power of attorney form, a POA. It gave Trevor Harrison full legal control over the financial affairs of Isaiah Thomas. It was dated 6 months ago. And at the bottom was my signature, or what looked like my signature. "It's a forgery," Julian stated calmly. "A very good one, but a forgery nonetheless. We ran it against your known signatures. The pressure is too uniform. The loop on the T is slightly off. It was almost certainly scanned and digitally traced." I stared at the name, my name. Signed away. Handing my life over to a man I never trusted. A man my daughter brought into our home. "He wouldn't have the guts to use it," I said, though a cold dread was settling in my stomach. "He'd be too afraid of getting caught." "He was afraid, sir," Julian replied, swiping to the next screen. "But he was more desperate." A bank statement appeared on the wall. It wasn't one of my real accounts. It was the account I had set up precisely for this purpose, the one I left open for them to see. I had always known this day might come. Serena. God rest her soul, she was the trusting one. I was the cynic. When Naomi first brought Trevor home, I saw the hunger in his eyes. The way he looked at my simple bungalow, not as a home but as an asset. The way he'd ask casual questions. So, Dad, this neighborhood must be worth a lot now. Or, you must have a nice little nest egg saved up after 40 years at the shop, huh? So, I set a trap. A simple, quiet trap. I opened a new savings account at a local bank. I put $100,000 into it. A tidy sum. Enough to be tempting. I left the bank statements accidentally on my desk in the bungalow. I let them think this was it. This was the nest egg. I told Julian, if that money ever moves without my authorization, we know their hearts. For 2 years that account sat untouched. $100,000. I almost started to believe I was wrong about Trevor. I almost let myself believe my daughter had chosen a good, if somewhat weak man. Now I was seeing the price of my misplaced hope. Julian zoomed in on the bank statement. The screen was a sea of red numbers. Withdrawals. They started small. Julian narrated, his voice devoid of emotion. $5,000 6 months ago, the day after the POA was signed. He likely tested it to see if you'd notice. I hadn't. I never checked that account. That wasn't its purpose. 2 months later, Julian continued, another $10,000. Then a month after that, $15,000. My eyes scanned the list. The amounts grew bolder as Trevor's confidence grew. Last week, a final withdrawal, $20,000. In total, $50,000. Gone. Half the bait. Half the money I'd left out to test their character. And they had failed. Miserably. I felt a sharp, cold pain in my chest. It wasn't a heart attack, it was the pain of confirmation. The pain of knowing my only child, Naomi, had stood by and watched her husband steal from me. Or worse, helped him. She knew, I whispered. Naomi would have seen the bank statements. She would have known I don't spend money like that. We believe so, sir, Julian said gently. The POA gave Trevor the legal cover he needed, but the desperation, it seems, was mutual. I turned back to the window, looking down at the city. The beautiful, glittering city that Serena and I had conquered in silence. We had built an empire brick by brick, secret by secret, all to give our daughter a life free from the poison of wealth. And in the end, the simple idea of money, just a few scraps from the table, was enough to make her betray me. $50,000, I said, my voice low and hard. That's not enough to risk this. A one-way ticket, a forgery, drugging me on a plane. This isn't a simple theft, Julian. I turned back to face him. The old, frail mechanic was gone. The man standing in the penthouse now was the one who built this. They are running from something far worse than poverty. I want to know what it is. I want to know Trevor's debts, every last penny. I want to know who he owes. I want to know who is pulling his strings. Julian nodded, a small, grim smile on his face. I already started, sir. They weren't just trying to rob you. They were trying to escape. Trevor kicked the door of the bungalow open, letting it slam against the wall. The little bell my wife Serena had hung there 40 years ago gave a pathetic tinkling sound. He's not here. Naomi rushed in behind him, wringing her hands, her face a mask of anxious irritation. What do you mean he's not here, Trevor? Where is he? Did the airport medical station call back? Trevor didn't answer. He stormed into the small, clean living room. My living room. It was exactly as we'd left it just hours before. Too quiet, too still. The air was stale. He's gone, Trevor said again, his voice dangerously low. He knew. He's gone. He violently swept a stack of my old woodworking magazines off the coffee table. They scattered across the worn rug. How does a 70-year-old man just walk out of a secure medical station? Naomi flinched. Trevor, you're scaring me. Maybe he just got confused. He is 70, maybe he's, wandering. We should call the police. No police, Trevor roared, and I could picture his face red and blotchy the way it got when he was losing at cards. You don't call the police on a confused old man until he's missing for 24 hours. We don't have 24 hours. He kicked the leg of my old recliner, the one I'd sat in 100 times watching baseball games, the one he and Naomi always said they'd throw out as soon as I was gone. He was playing us, Trevor snarled, grabbing his hair with both hands. The whole time. That heart attack was fake. That flight attendant, she must have said something. She must have warned him. Fake Trevor, he's an old man. He's just a retired mechanic. How could he fake a heart attack and just disappear from O'Hare? Trevor was already stalking into my bedroom. I could hear the sounds from my memory, the scrape of my closet door being yanked open. Just my old suits, my worn-out shirts, then the sound of dresser drawers being ripped out. Socks, underwear, nothing else. "Where's his passport?" he yelled, his voice echoing in the small house. "Where's his checkbook? He doesn't have a passport." "Trevor?" Naomi's voice was small, frightened. "He never wanted one, and he just has that one debit card. You know that. You have the power of attorney." "The POA." Trevor stopped. His breathing was heavy. "He knows. He must know about the POA." I heard a loud thud, the sound of my mattress being ripped off the box spring. He was looking underneath like in a cheap movie. "He has to have money hidden here. Old people always have cash hidden. Trevor, stop. This is my father's house. It's our house," he screamed, his voice turning shrill. "Or it was supposed to be." He found nothing, just dust bunnies and a lost sock. He threw the mattress back onto the frame. "He's not wandering, Naomi. He ran." Trevor pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. I could picture them. He almost dropped it. "Who are you calling?" Naomi asked, her voice trembling. "Someone who can find him faster than the police." He punched in a number, holding the phone to his ear. "Mick, it's Trevor Harrison. I need a locator. Now." There was a pause. Even without hearing the other side, I could feel the tension. "I'll pay you. I'll pay you double," Trevor said, pacing frantically. "I just need you to find an old man. Isaiah Thomas, 70 years old, black male, last seen at O'Hare." Another pause. "He's smart," Trevor lied. "He's not what he looks like. He just slipped out of airport medical. He has my money." His money, the $50,000 he had stolen. "Fine. Just find him. He can't have gone far. He's just a broke old mechanic with a bungalow. How far can he get?" He hung up and stared at the phone. "A broke old mechanic," he muttered to himself. "Then who the hell was that he called?" He said, "Lawyer. The old man doesn't have a lawyer." Before Naomi could answer, the shattered quiet of the bungalow was broken again. Trevor's other phone was ringing. A different phone. A burner phone. It had a sharp, jarring ringtone. Trevor froze. The color drained from his face. He stared at the blocked number flashing on the screen. "Trevor?" Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. "Who is that?" "That's the same number that called last night. Who is it?" He didn't answer. He just swiped to accept the call. "Hello?" His voice, which had been booming with rage seconds before, was now weak, thin. A voice on the other end crackled. It was cold as steel, sharp as a razor. "Mr. Harrison, the clock just struck noon. Your extension has expired." Trevor started to sweat, wiping his forehead with his sleeve. "Vince, listen to me. I just need a few more days. I swear, it's a lock. The asset is just misplaced." "You told me that on Monday," the voice said, dangerously calm. "You told me you had a signed POA and a one-way ticket to Arizona. You told me the asset, your father-in-law, would be handled by this afternoon. You told me the house would be listed by tomorrow." "There was a problem at the airport," Trevor said, his voice rising in panic. "A medical thing. He got delayed, but it's fine. I just need until Friday. Friday, I promise." Naomi was staring at him, her eyes wide with a new kind of terror. "Arizona handled." "Shut up, Naomi!" Trevor hissed, covering the phone's receiver with his hand. The voice, Vince, actually laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "You're not fine, Trevor. You owe me $500,000. You took $500,000 from me, and you bet it all on the ponies. You lost. Now the Bank of Vince is foreclosing. I want my money or I'm taking collateral." "You can't," Trevor pleaded, his voice breaking. "I'll get it. The old manny has the money, the house, the pension. I just have to find him." "You have until midnight tomorrow," Vince said. "Not to get the money, just to call me and tell me where you are. If you don't call, I'll find my collateral. And you know what that is." The line went dead. Trevor let out a sound, a half sob, half scream. He threw his burner phone against the wall. It shattered into a dozen pieces. $500,000, Naomi whispered. "Trevor, what did he mean betted on the ponies?" Trevor spun around, his desperation morphing back into pure animal rage. "It's nothing. It's a business loan, that's all. You told me you were investing in tech stocks," Naomi cried. "You told me we were fine. You told me my father's house. You said we just needed to sell his house so we could get our own house, the one in Lincoln Park." "I lied," Trevor shouted, his face inches from hers. "Okay, I lied, I lost it all. The investment, the money your parents gave us for the wedding, all of it, I gambled it away. And that old man was our only way out. That house, that pension. It was supposed to fix this." Naomi backed away, her hand over her mouth, horrified. This was not the man she married. This was a stranger. "You lied to me," she repeated, the realization hitting her. "The nursing home, Sunset Vistas, the power of attorney. It was all about gambling debts. It was about survival." Trevor grabbed her by the shoulders. "And it still is. We have to find him. We find him. We get him to sign the real papers, and this all goes away." Naomi looked around the simple, dusty bungalow, the home of the man she had dismissed her entire life, the man she had helped her husband betray. "But Trevor," she whispered, the final terrifying piece of the puzzle clicking into place. "If he's just a broke old mechanic, how did he know to run?" Julian didn't flinch. He simply absorbed my request, his mind already 5 steps ahead. "A very astute observation, Mr. Thomas. Desperate men do not care about consequences. They only care about the next move." I sipped the coffee he had prepared for me. It was a single-origin Kenyan bean, freshly ground. It tasted of berries and dark chocolate. It was the kind of coffee a man who owns $35 million drinks. It was not the bitter, burnt Folgers I drank at the bungalow in Chatham. I missed the Folgers, but I missed the man I was, the simple mechanic, even more. That man was a luxury I could no longer afford. That man was a disguise that had almost gotten me killed. "Trevor is a gambler," I said, setting the cup down on the solid marble table. I knew that when Naomi brought him home. I saw it in his eyes. He has the look of a man who is always calculating the odds, always sure the next hand will be the big one. "And Naomi?" Julian asked gently. I paused. Naomi was my blind spot. I thought she was in love. I thought she was just weak. I didn't realize she was his partner. "The POA forgery is a felony, sir. The attempted kidnapping is another. But the $50,000 they stole is the leverage we can use right now. It is the proof that the threat is active." I looked at the bank statement on the wall screen again. $50,000. It was nothing to me. But to them it was everything. It was the money they were using to finance my destruction. "The rat is hungry, Julian," I said, my voice cold. "Let's lock the cheese box." I leaned back. The man who had pretended to be frail in an airport wheelchair was gone. The man who built this empire, the man who had stared down corporate raiders in the 90s and won, was back. "Call the bank," I ordered. "Report the POA as fraudulent, immediately. Report the debit card linked to that account as stolen. I want that account frozen tighter than a Chicago winter. I want the next time Trevor tries to access my money, he hits a wall of steel." Julian was already dialing. "Yes," he spoke into the phone. "This is Julian Wright, Senior Counsel for the Thomas Trust. I am calling on behalf of my client, Mr. Isaiah Thomas. We are reporting a fraudulent power of attorney and multiple unauthorized withdrawals on savings account 7749. I need an immediate freeze on all assets in that account. Yes, I'll hold." He muted the phone and looked at me. "It will be done in the next 3 minutes, sir. What is the next move?" "Now," I said, "we wait. We wait for the cornered rat to realize the trap has snapped shut." The scene switched from the quiet, air-conditioned calm of my penthouse to the humid, desperate heat of a Chicago street corner. Trevor yanked his leased BMW, a car I now knew I had been secretly paying for, to the curb in front of a Chase bank. Naomi was in the passenger seat, her face pale. "Trevor, where are we?" "What are you doing, Mick? The PI just called. He said he can't find him. He said my father has vanished." "He hasn't vanished," Trevor snarled, cutting the engine. "He's hiding, and Mick isn't going to do a damn thing until I pay his retainer. He wants $5,000, in cash." $5,000! Naomi's voice was shrill. "Trevor, we don't have $5,000. You spent the last of the money from the account on that plane ticket." "He still has $50,000 left in that account," Trevor said, yanking his wallet out. "I only took what we needed to get the ball rolling. The old fool is smart, but he's not that smart. He's probably hiding in some cheap motel in Indiana. He wouldn't have had time to call the bank. He doesn't even know how." He got out of the car, slamming the door. Naomi watched him, her hands twisting in her lap. She was finally seeing the man she married, the man who had been so charming, so confident, the white-collar professional who had promised her a life her poor old dad could never provide. Now she was watching a desperate, sweaty man about to rob her father. Trevor marched to the ATM. It was one of those outdoor machines, stained and grim. He looked around paranoid before pulling a card from his wallet. It was my card. The one linked to the bait account, the one he had stolen from my desk drawer. He jammed the card into the slot. He knew the PIN. Of course he knew the PIN. Naomi had probably given it to him. Just in case of emergencies, honey. He punched in the numbers. Cash withdrawal, amount $2,500, the maximum. The machine whirred. The screen flashed, processing your transaction. Trevor tapped his foot, impatient. Come on, come on. Then the screen changed. Transaction cannot be completed. This card has been reported stolen and is now inactive. What? He whispered. The machine whirred again, a horrible grinding sound, and it did not spit the card back out. It swallowed it. No, Trevor said, his voice rising. No, 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 no. He slammed his fist against the metal casing of the ATM. He did it. That old bastard, he did it. He hit the machine again so hard that a woman walking her dog crossed the street to avoid him. Naomi scrambled out of the car. Trevor, what's wrong? What happened? He knows, Trevor screamed, his face bright red. He canceled the card. He reported it stolen. He knows about the POA. He knows everything. But how? Naomi was crying now, tears of pure panic. That's impossible. He's just Dad. He doesn't know how to do this. He must have called us by mistake. He didn't call us, you idiot. Trevor grabbed his own wallet, his hands shaking so badly he could barely open it. He called that lawyer, the one from the airport. He's not alone. What are we going to do? Naomi sobbed. Vince is going to call. Mick is going to drop the search. We have no money. It's fine. It's fine, Trevor said, pulling out his own personal American Express card. I just paid this off. The automatic payment went through last week. I have plenty of room. He jammed his own card into the machine. He was frantic now, not even thinking, just reacting. Cash advance. Enter amount $5,000. Naomi watched him, holding her breath. The screen flashed. Processing your transaction. And then the words that would end him. Transaction declined. Credit limit exceeded. Trevor stared at the screen. What? No. That's impossible. I have a $25,000 limit. I just paid it. He tried again, frantically. $1,000. Transaction declined. He ripped the Amex out and threw it on the ground. He grabbed his Visa. He jammed it in. Transaction declined. Trevor. Naomi said, her voice dead. What is going on? Why are your cards declined? I don't know, he yelled. I paid them the automatic payment. It went through. I saw it. From the old man's account. He stopped. The realization hit him. He pulled out his phone, his fingers fumbling as he tried to log into his banking app. He finally got in. He stared at the screen. Account alert. Automatic payment from Isaiah Thomas Savings, number 7749. Amount $15,200 has been reversed due to a fraud investigation. Credit limit $25,000. Current balance $24,980. Available credit $20. He reversed the payments. Trevor whispered, the sound barely audible. He clawed the money back, the money I used to pay the cards. He knew. Back in the penthouse, Julian's phone chimed with an alert. He looked at it, then at me. Sir, the fraud claims were successful. The clawback on the automatic payments you were secretly covering for Mr. Harrison's credit cards has been executed. As of 3 minutes ago, his personal accounts are maxed out and completely frozen. I took another long, slow sip of my coffee. Good. Back at the ATM, Trevor was sliding down the wall of the bank, hyperventilating. What payments? Naomi asked, the last piece of her denial crumbling. What automatic payments? From my father. Trevor looked up at her, his eyes no longer just angry, but filled with a new, terrifying respect. A respect I had never seen from him. He wasn't just letting me use the account, Trevor breathed. He's been paying for everything, for years. The car lease, the credit card bills, our rent. What? This whole time, Trevor said, looking wildly up and down the street as if I might be standing right there. This whole time, he's been watching us. He scrambled to his feet and grabbed Naomi's arm, his fingers digging in. "He's not fighting back, Naomi. He's been setting this trap for years. Who the hell is he? Who is helping that old man?" Julian tapped his tablet again. The screen on the wall changed from the frozen bank accounts to the homepage of a website. It looked serene. Palm trees, a beautiful adobe building against a piercing blue Arizona sky. The words Sunset Vistas were written in a gentle flowing script. Underneath the tagline, "A premier wellness community for your golden years." "Sir, your question about Trevor's debts was the right one," Julian said, his voice clipped and precise. "It wasn't just gambling, it was everything. He was leveraged to the breaking point. Which led us to this," he pointed to the screen. "You were right. They weren't just taking you on a surprise trip. They had a destination." I stared at the picture. It looked like a 5-star resort. "A nursing home," I said. The word felt like ash in my mouth. "No, Mr. Thomas. It's worse," Julian said. He zoomed in on the fine print at the bottom of the web page. "Sunset Vistas is not a licensed medical facility. It is a private asset management trust that provides residential living." I frowned. "Speak English, Julian." "It's a scam, a very sophisticated, very legal scam. My team has been digging for the last 3 hours. The founder is a disbarred attorney from California. He found a loophole in Arizona's elderly care laws. This facility doesn't take medical insurance. It only takes asset buy-ins." My blood ran cold. Asset buy-ins. A family member, usually one with a fraudulent power of attorney, commits their elderly relative. Upon admission, the facility's legal team immediately begins a rapid asset liquidation to pay for their long-term care. They sell their house, their stocks, their possessions. All, of course, for an exorbitant fee. They drain the estate dry in a matter of months. Julian swiped the screen. A new page appeared, a list of lawsuits. "We found 12 cases in the last 3 years alone," he said. "All 12 were settled out of court, all with gag orders. The families who tried to get their parents back claimed the residents were over-medicated, confused, and coerced into signing new wills that named the facility's holding company as a beneficiary. By the time the families fought their way in, the money was gone. The patients were often gone too, declared dead of natural causes within the first year." I finally understood. The wheelchair. The one-way ticket. The insistence that I was confused. They weren't just trying to put me in a home, they were trying to erase me. They were sending me to a place designed to liquidate me body and soul. "They needed you declared mentally incompetent," Julian said, as if reading my mind. "But they were getting impatient. The POA they forged wasn't strong enough to give them total control, so they needed to get you physically into the facility's custody. Once you were inside, their doctors, their lawyers, you would have had no way out." I felt a wave of nausea. The casual cruelty of it. The planning. This wasn't a desperate spur-of-the-moment idea. This was a conspiracy. "And Trevor," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He found this place. He arranged this." "He did more than arrange it, sir." Julian's face was grim. He swiped to the final document. It was a scanned contract. A simple one-page agreement. It was not a medical document. It was a finder's fee agreement. My eyes found the key clause. Julian read it aloud anyway, his voice ringing with cold fury. "Upon the successful admission and subsequent asset assessment of the client, Isaiah Thomas, a one-time referral bonus of $100,000 will be dispersed to the referring party, Mr. Trevor Harrison. This payment is contingent upon the successful liquidation of the client's primary residence, located at 8840 South Bishop Street, Chicago, Illinois." $100,000. That was the price. He had sold me. For $100,000 and the scraps of my bungalow. He had conspired with these ghouls to have me drugged, imprisoned, and my assets stripped, all for a kickback. I stood up from the marble table. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city was so beautiful from up here. Lake Michigan stretched out like a sheet of dark, calm glass. I remembered Naomi as a little girl. I remembered teaching her how to ride her bike on that very street, 8840 South Bishop. I remembered her scraped knees. I remembered her little hands holding my big grease-stained ones, trusting me completely. I remembered walking her down the aisle, handing that same trusting hand over to Trevor Harrison. I remembered the pride in her eyes. Was it pride in me, or pride in the man she was marrying? I saw now that it was pride in the plan, in the con. My Serena was lucky she died before she had to see this. Before she had to see what our daughter had become, what she had allowed. The anger I felt wasn't hot. It didn't burn. It was a cold, hard, heavy thing. It settled deep in my chest. The kind of cold that freezes water solid. The kind of cold that builds empires. The frail old mechanic from the South Side, the man who had been playing a part for 40 years, he died in that moment. And the man who had bought that first garage in 1983, the man who saw what no one else saw, the man who built $35 million from nothing, he was back. And he was furious. I turned away from the window. My face was calm. My hands were steady. "Julian," I said. "Sir." "They got sloppy. That flight attendant, Tiana, she's the loose end they didn't tie up. I've already begun a search for her, sir. Discreetly." "Good. Trevor is desperate. He knows she heard something. He saw her warn me even if he can't prove it. He's a gambler and he will see her as a threat he needs to manage. We need to find her before he does. He's cornered Julian and a cornered rat will do anything to escape." I walked over to the bar and poured myself a glass of water. My hand was perfectly still. "Find her," I said. "Tell her I want to thank her personally for saving my life. Tell her I want to offer her a new job. And tell her I need her to tell me everything, every single word she heard, because we are going to build a cage for my son-in-law, a cage made of his own greed, and Tiana just gave us the bars." I stood up from the marble table. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city was so beautiful from up here. Lake Michigan stretched out like a sheet of dark, calm glass. $100,000. That was the number. That was the price tag my daughter and her husband had put on my head. Less than 1% of what I'm worth. But it was more than just a number. It was a finder's fee, a commission, like I was a piece of real estate to be flipped. I thought about Naomi. My Naomi. I remembered when she was 6 years old. We were in the old bungalow. I was at the kitchen table covered in grease from a transmission I was rebuilding in the garage. She came to me crying. A kid at school had stolen her favorite pencil, a little red one with a glittery star on the end. I didn't march to the school. I didn't call the kid's parents. I sat her on my lap. I remember the smell of her shampoo. I said, "Naomi, baby, there are two kinds of people in this world. People who build and people who take. Takers think they're winning, but all they have is what they stole. People who build, they have what they made. They have themselves." I took a small block of pine from my workshop that night. I sat with her for hours teaching her how to whittle, how to sand the wood. We carved a little bird. We painted it red. "See, baby," I told her, "they can take your pencil, but they can't take this. They can't take what's in your hands. They can't take what's in your head." She had kept that little red bird on her dresser for 20 years. Until she met Trevor. Then it disappeared. Probably ended up in a box. Then in the trash, replaced by something new, something shiny, something he bought her with a credit card I was paying for. She sold me. For $100,000. My own daughter, the girl I walked down the aisle, the girl I taught to value what you build with your own hands. She looked at her father, the man who built an empire for her in silence, and she saw nothing but a run-down house to be liquidated. I felt the anger rise. It was hot. It was suffocating. I wanted to break something. I wanted to go back to that bungalow and smash every picture of her smiling face. But then, just as fast, the heat was gone. It didn't just fade. It was replaced by something else. A cold, hard, heavy thing. It settled deep in my chest. The kind of cold that freezes water solid. The kind of cold that builds empires. The frail old mechanic from the South Side, the man who had been playing a part for 40 years, the man who had loved his daughter more than his own life. He died in that moment. And the man who had bought that first garage in 1983, the man who saw what no one else saw, the man who built $35 million from nothing, he was back. And he was furious. I turned away from the window. My face was calm. My hands were steady. Julian was watching me waiting. He knew this look. He had seen it before in boardrooms and negotiations that were falling apart. It was the look I got right before I won. "Julian," I said. My voice was quiet, but the anger made it heavy. "Sir, they got sloppy. Trevor is a gambler. He thinks he's smart, but he's just a desperate kid. He made a mistake, a big one." "The power of attorney, sir." No, I said. Bigger. He let someone else see the cards, that flight attendant, Tiana. Julian's expression sharpened. I've already begun a search for her, sir, discreetly. Good, but this is not a discreet matter anymore. Trevor is desperate. He knows she heard something. He saw her face when she looked at him. He saw her warn me even if he can't prove how. He's a cornered animal, Julian, and he will see her as a loose end, a threat he needs to manage. I walked back to the table, my mind clear for the first time since that morning. We need to find her before he does. He's not just a con man anymore. He's not just a thief. He's a man who was willing to have me drugged and imprisoned to pay a $500,000 gambling debt. Silencing one flight attendant is nothing to him. I looked Julian in the eye. Find her. I don't care what it costs. Double her salary. Triple it. Tell her I want to thank her personally for saving my life. Tell her I want to offer her a new job running the security for my new foundation. A new foundation, sir. The Serena Thomas Foundation for the Protection of the Elderly, I said. I just decided. Now find Tiana. She's not just a witness anymore. She's our first client. I paused, letting the weight of the next thought settle. And tell her I need to know everything, every single word she heard, every inflection in his voice, because we are going to build a cage for my son-in-law, a cage made of his own greed, and Tiana just gave us the bars. Julian's team was fast. It took them less than 4 hours. He called me in the penthouse. We found her, Mr. Thomas. Tiana. I felt a rush of relief followed immediately by a spike of fear, not for me, but for her. Is she safe? For now, Julian said. His voice was grim. She wasn't easy to locate. She'd already requested an immediate route change, cited a family emergency. She was trying to disappear. My operative found her at her sister's apartment in Wicker Park. She was scared, sir. Very scared. He said she was about to go to her airline union representative, but she was afraid they'd just call her paranoid. Afraid they wouldn't believe her. I nodded. Of course they wouldn't. Who would believe a story like that? A wealthy family drugging their old father to steal his money. It sounds like a bad movie. Did she say why she was so frightened? I asked. She told my operative that Mr. Harrison Trevor had recognized her, that he looked at her differently after the incident at the plane door. She's been looking over her shoulder for 2 days. She was convinced he was going to find out where she lived. She said he had a look in his eye that she'd never seen before, a look of pure animal panic. This confirmed it. Trevor wasn't just a white-collar thief. He was a cornered rat, and cornered rats bite hard. Where is she now, Julian? She's in a secure location. We promised her full protection. She has agreed to meet you. She's terrified, sir. She thinks she's mixed up in something way over her head. I let out a long breath. She is, I said. And so am I. I thought about the risk that young woman had taken for a stranger, for an old man in a wheelchair she'd never met. She had seen something wrong and she had acted. She had shown more courage and more character in that 30-second whisper than my own daughter had shown in 10 years. Set up the meeting, I ordered. A public place, somewhere she can see the exits. She needs to feel safe. And Julian, make sure she is not followed. I don't want Trevor or that private investigator of his, Mick, anywhere near her. We met 2 hours later at a small, old-fashioned diner in Lincoln Park, the kind of place with vinyl booths, a long Formica countertop, and coffee that's been brewing for hours. It was public, but anonymous. My security team was already in place, 2 men in the booth behind me, another at the counter, all looking like they were just reading the paper. I arrived first. I was in my old mechanic clothes, my worn jeans, my flannel shirt. I needed her to see the man she had saved, not the man from the penthouse. She slid into the booth opposite me. She was young, maybe 25. She wore a hoodie pulled up over her hair, and her eyes darted to the door every time the bell rang. She was twisting a paper napkin in her hands, shredding it into tiny pieces. Tiana, I said, my voice gentle. My name is Isaiah Thomas. Thank you for coming. She jumped at the sound of my voice. Sir, Mr. Thomas, I don't want any trouble. I couldn't. My own grandmother, she was in one of those places. They told us it was for her own good. They took her house. She died 6 months later. It was awful. When I heard him on the phone, it sounded just like that. My heart ached for her. This wasn't a random act of kindness. This was personal. You did more than not let it happen, I said, leaning forward. You saved my life. I've already spoken to my financial manager. I have set up a trust fund for you. Consider it an early retirement or a new start, whatever you want. Tiana's eyes filled with tears. Sir, I didn't do it for money. I know, I said. That's why you deserve it. But right now, Tiana, I need something more valuable than money. I need the truth. I need you to tell me exactly what you heard on that plane. Every single word. Don't leave anything out. She nodded, taking a shaky breath. She took a sip of the water I had ordered for her. I was working the first-class cabin before general boarding. She began, her voice low. The gate agent told me we had a last-second wheelchair passenger, so I was in the front galley preparing the aisle seat for you. I thought the cabin was empty, but your son-in-law Trevor was already there. He was sitting in 2A by the window. He was on his cell phone, his back to me. He was already in first class. While he was shipping me off to my death in a coach seat, the arrogance of it. He was whispering, Tiana continued, but he was angry. I could hear the edge in his voice. I heard him say, No, it's all handled. The old man is on the wheelchair, he's already confused. We'll be at O'Hare in 10 minutes. She paused, remembering. He listened for a second, then he said, Look, just have your people in Arizona ready. As soon as he's admitted to Sunset Vistas, your lawyers can start liquidating the house. I don't care about the market. I want it sold fast. My hands resting on the table clenched into fists. Liquidating the house. My house. Serena's house. The house I brought my daughter home to. And then, Tiana said, her voice dropping even lower. He said the part that made me stop. The part I couldn't ignore. He said, my $100,000 fee gets wired the moment he's inside. Right, excellent. We're all on the same page then. He said it out loud. He was so sure of himself, so arrogant, that he discussed his finder's fee for selling his father-in-law on an open phone line. That's when he turned, Tiana said, her own hand shaking now. He saw me. He hadn't known I was there. His face, Mr. Thomas, his face just dropped. It went from this smug, satisfied smirk to something cold. He snapped the phone shut so fast it made a clicking sound. He stood up, she continued. He asked me what I heard. I lied. I just said, Oh, nothing, sir, just checking the cabin supplies. But he knew I was lying. He stared at me. He didn't believe me. That's when I knew I was in trouble. And that's when I knew you were in even more. I nodded, slowly processing. And that's when you warned me, on the jet bridge. Tiana shook her head. The shredded napkin was a small pile of white confetti on the table. No, sir, that's just the first part. That's when I knew they were scamming you. I didn't know they were harming you. Not yet. My blood went cold again. What changed? I went back to the galley. A few minutes later, your daughter Naomi boarded. She walked right past you and Mr. Harrison while he was checking his bags. She didn't say a word to either of you. She went straight to the first-class restroom. I was in the service area right outside getting water. She wasn't using the restroom, Tiana said, her eyes wide. She was just hiding. She was on her phone texting. She was leaning against the wall and I could see her screen. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear. It was just right there. Her screen was so bright. What did it say, Tiana? She closed her eyes as if reciting the words burned her. She was texting her husband, Trevor, the man standing just 10 feet away from her, and the text, Mr. Thomas. The text said, Tiana took a deep, shuddering breath. It said, Trevor, are you sure the sedative will last the whole flight? I don't want him waking up and making a scene over Phoenix. Make sure he drinks the whole bottle of water before takeoff. A sedative. My own daughter, my Naomi. I sat back hard against the vinyl booth. The sounds of the diner faded, the clatter of plates, the murmur of conversation, all of it just gone. All I could hear was that single word, sedative. They weren't just taking me to a home. They were drugging me to get me there. Tiana was crying softly now. That's when I knew Mr. Thomas. That's when I knew this wasn't just a scam. This was evil. I had to do something. So I waited until he was distracted and I walked out onto the jet bridge and I said what I said. I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. Her skin was ice cold. Tiana, I said, my voice thick, you're not safe. Not anymore. Julian will handle everything. You are no longer an airline employee. As of this moment, you work for me. You will not go home. You will not go to your sister's. One of my men outside will take you to a private suite. You will be safe there until this is over." She nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. I left her there, and my security man, the one who looked like a college professor, slid into the booth as I left. I walked out of the diner into the bright, cold Chicago afternoon, but I didn't feel the cold. All I felt was a vast, empty canyon inside me. They weren't just trying to steal from me. They weren't just trying to imprison me. They were willing to drug me, to make me helpless, to incapacitate me, all to get me onto that plane. I got into the back of my car. I picked up the secure phone. "Julian," I said, "they plan to drug me. We need to look at this differently. This is no longer just financial fraud. This is kidnapping. This is assault." "I agree, sir." Julian's voice came back tight with anger. "And I think I've just found the next piece of the puzzle. While my team was looking for Tiana, they were also running that background check on Trevor's financials." I waited. "It's an insurance policy, sir. A new one. Taken out 3 months ago. And the payout, Mr. Thomas. The payout is $2 million. The Sunset Motel sign flickered its neon S, buzzing like an angry hornet. The room smelled of bleach old cigarettes and failure. Trevor was pacing his shirt soaked in sweat despite the rattling air conditioner. Naomi was sitting on the edge of the lumpy bed, her expensive designer handbag clutched in her lap like a life raft. She was crying. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice raw. "You lied about everything." Trevor spun around. "Keep your voice down. You think they can't hear us through these paper-thin walls?" "I don't care," she shrieked, standing up. "You told me it was a wellness community. You told me it was a nice place for him to retire, a place where he'd be safe." "It is safe," Trevor hissed. "It's a facility. It's a scam." "Trevor, that's what Julian Wright said on the phone. Rapid asset liquidation. That's not care, that's theft. You were going to sell his house." "It was our house," Trevor roared, getting in her face. "It was supposed to be, he owes us that, after everything we've done for him." "What have we done for him?" Naomi's voice cracked. "My father has been paying for our lives. You told me those payments. You told me that was your bonus. You've been lying to me since the day we met." "So what?" Trevor shoved a chair out of his way. "It's his job to provide for his family. He's our father. He's my father. And you were going to drug him. Trevor, that flight attendant. She heard you talking about sedatives. You were going to drug my father." "It was just a mild sleeping pill," Trevor yelled, his hands balled into fists. To keep him calm, he would have been confused on the plane. He would have been scared. I was trying to make the transition easier for him. "Easier for him or easier for you?" Naomi finally screamed back. "You sold him Trevor. For $100,000, you sold my father like he was a piece of furniture." "It was $500,000. Trevor's confession exploded out of him, desperate and ugly. "The gambling debt Vince was going to... He was going to hurt us, Naomi. He was going to hurt you. I did this to protect us, to protect our future. By destroying my father's. He's 70 years old. He's lived his life. Our life is just starting. And now it's over." Trevor collapsed onto the other bed, his head in his hands. "He's taken everything. The accounts are frozen. The cards are dead. That PI Mick, he just dropped us. He said the old man's name is flagged by some serious people. We're broke. We're done." Naomi looked at the peeling paint on the wall, her mind racing. She wasn't just scared. She was thinking. "No," she said, her voice suddenly cold. "We're not done. You're right. He's my father. He loves me. You scared him. We find him. We apologize. We grovel. We tell him it was all a misunderstanding. We blame the flight attendant. We blame the bank. We get him back." Trevor looked up, a flicker of hope in his desperate eyes. You think he'll believe us? After this, he has to." Naomi said, her own face hardening. "I'm his daughter. He's just an old, sentimental fool. He'll forgive me. He has to." Back in the penthouse, the city lights glittered below like a carpet of diamonds. They were beautiful, but they offered no warmth. I stood at the window, the secure phone pressed to my ear. $2 million, I repeated. The words tasted like poison. "Yes, sir." Julian's voice was tight with an anger he rarely showed. That is not the worst of it. My team, while they were running the check on Trevor's financials and his connection to Sunset Vistas, they cross-referenced his known aliases and the forged POA. This triggered an alert from one of our insurance partners. Insurance. A new life insurance policy, sir. It was taken out 3 months ago. My heart, which I thought had turned to ice, gave a single painful thud. Life insurance. A $2 million policy, Julian said. I let the number hang in the air. $2 million. I walked over to the marble bar and poured a glass of water. My hand was perfectly steady. This was no longer just greed. This wasn't panic. This was a plan. The policy was taken out in your name, Julian continued. The payments were being made from the Bait account, which is why you never saw them. The forgery on the signature, sir, it's the same one from the power of attorney. $2 million. They weren't just taking me to Arizona to rob me. They were taking me there to die. The sedative wasn't just for the flight. It was the beginning. It was the make him confused part, the make him frail part, the part that made it easy for him to accidentally fall or to be over-medicated by the compassionate staff at Sunset Vistas. It all made sense now. The rush, the desperation. The $50,000 theft was just seed money. The house was the down payment. The $2 million policy, that was the real prize. This was a murder plot. My son-in-law and my daughter were planning to kill me. I need to see it, I said. Julian put the tablet on the table. There it was. My name, Isaiah Thomas. My address. My social security number, which they must have gotten from my files in the bungalow. And a signature, my signature. And I remembered. I was in the bungalow sitting in my recliner. It was 3, maybe 4 months ago, a Saturday. The Bears game was on. Trevor had come in all smiles, holding a small stack of papers. Hey, Dad, he said. He always called me Dad. It always made my skin crawl. What's that, Trevor? I asked, my eyes on the game. Oh, it's just... The DMV sent me this. It's a renewal for my license plate, but since your name is also on the car's registration, they need your signature too. You know how the state is. Bureaucracy. I'd co-signed the lease on his BMW. He'd told me his credit was in flux from a job change. Another lie. I'd done it to help him, to help Naomi. Where do I sign? I asked, annoyed at the interruption. Just here, he said, holding the paper out on a clipboard. He had a pen ready. And here. I looked down. It looked official. It had the Illinois state logo on it. It looked like a standard DMV form. I was focused on the game. The Bears were on the 10-yard line. Hurry up, son, they're about to score. Right here, Dad, he pointed. I grabbed the pen and scribbled my name, Isaiah Thomas. I didn't read the fine print. Why would I? It was just a DMV form. Thanks, Dad. You're a lifesaver, he said, snatching the clipboard back almost too quickly. I'll get this mailed right out. Yeah, I muttered, turning back to the TV. He had been holding another paper underneath, the insurance application. He had just needed my signature. A clean, wet ink signature that he could then scan and use for anything. The POA, the insurance policy. He had played me. He had used my trust, my distraction, and my love for football to sign my own death warrant. And I had let him. The memory faded. I was back in the penthouse. The glittering lights of the city felt like they were mocking me. A DMV form, I said, my voice thick with self-loathing. He tricked me with a fake DMV form. It was a sophisticated forgery, sir, Julian said. The logo, the letterhead, they were perfect. He must have spent some of your stolen money to have it fabricated. I looked at the insurance policy on the screen. $2 million. And the beneficiary? I asked. My voice was hollow. I knew the answer. Naomi. Julian zoomed in on the beneficiary section. Yes, sir. Naomi Grace Harrison, your daughter. She is listed as the primary beneficiary. My heart twisted. She was in on it. From the beginning, the sedative, the insurance. She was waiting for me to die, my own child. However, Julian said, his voice dropping, there is something else. Something Trevor probably didn't think we would find. He scrolled down. He also listed a contingent beneficiary. A secondary beneficiary who, Julian tapped the screen. The name appeared, Trevor Harrison. I stared at the screen. I didn't understand. Why would he list himself as secondary if Naomi gets the money? That's the question we asked, sir, Julian said. Why would he unless... He never intended for the primary beneficiary to collect. It hit me. It hit me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't a plan between a husband and wife. This was his plan. The complete plan. The full, horrifying, beautiful, and terrible plan. Step 1. Get a fraudulent POA. Steal seed money from the bait account to pay for the operation. Step 2. Use that seed money to buy a high-value short-term life insurance policy on me. Step 3. Trick me into signing the application. List Naomi as the primary beneficiary because that looks natural. A daughter inheriting from her father. No red flags. Step 4. List himself as the contingent. Step 5. Get me to Sunset Vistas. Arrange my accidental death. Step 6. The insurance pays out $2 million to my grieving daughter Naomi. Step 7. Trevor, the grieving widower, arranges a second accident. One for Naomi. And as the contingent beneficiary, he walks away with $2 million, his gambling debts paid, and both of us in the ground. He wasn't just conning me. He was conning his own wife. He was conning my daughter. He was going to kill us both. That monster, I whispered. I wasn't angry anymore. I was impressed. The sheer, cold-blooded audacity of it, the sociopathic brilliance. He had turned my daughter against me, using her as a tool, as a temporary bank account, as a pawn to be sacrificed. I looked at Julian. He was already thinking what I was thinking. This changes the game, sir, Julian said. Yes, it does, I replied. Trevor thinks he's playing chess, but he's just a pawn, and now we have his queen. Naomi, Julian said. Naomi, I confirmed. She's a co-conspirator, but she's also his next victim. She just doesn't know it yet. It's time we showed her. I picked up the secure phone. Julian, get me the number for that loan shark, Vince, the one Trevor owes $500,000 to. Julian raised an eyebrow. Sir, Trevor is desperate for money, I said. Let's give him exactly what he wants. We're going to set a new trap, and this time we're going to use the bait he loves most, Naomi. I looked at the $2 million policy on the screen. The contingent beneficiary, Trevor Harrison. He was going to kill my daughter. He was going to kill us both. I felt the rage turn into something else, something colder and sharper than a shard of ice. This was no longer a matter of justice. This was extermination. Julian, I said. My voice was perfectly calm. Sir, this changes the game. Trevor thinks he's playing chess, but he's just a pawn, and now we have his queen. Naomi, Julian said, his eyes narrowing. Naomi, I confirmed. She's a co-conspirator. She was willing to drug me and ship me off to Arizona. She's guilty, but she's also his next victim, and she just doesn't know it yet. I walked back to the bar. I poured 2 fingers of the good bourbon, the stuff Serena and I saved for anniversaries. This felt like an anniversary. The anniversary of my old life's death. Trevor is a gambler, Julian, and gamblers have one weakness. They always believe in the next hand. They always believe in a bailout. Right now he's in a cheap motel room. He's broke. He's desperate. His private investigator just dropped him. His accounts are frozen. And he has a man named Vince Moretti breathing down his neck for $500,000. He is a cornered animal. What do you propose, sir? We're not just going to trap him, I said. We're going to let him trap himself. We're going to open the cage door and let the tiger in. I took a sip. The bourbon burned, but it was a clean, honest burn. Get me the number for Vince Moretti. You are going to call him, not as my lawyer, as my representative. You will tell him that Isaiah Thomas wishes to settle his son-in-law's debt. Julian raised an eyebrow. He never questioned me, but this was close. Sir, you intend to pay $500,000 to a loan shark. I intend to offer to pay it. There's a very big difference. I set the glass down. The ice didn't even clink. Here is the offer, $500,000, in cash, in a briefcase, tomorrow, in exchange for 2 things, which are, 1, the debt is cleared, Trevor Harrison is free, 2, I want a meeting. I want Trevor, I want Naomi, and I want Vince all in the same room. I want Trevor to see his savior and his executioner at the very same table. Julian allowed himself a small, thin smile. He will take the deal, sir. Vince Moretti respects only one thing, money. The fact that you know about him and that you have the cash will put the fear of God into him. He'll think you're a rival." "Good," I said. "I don't want him afraid of God. I want him afraid of me. Make the call." I began to pace, mapping it out loud. "This is what will happen. Vince will take the meeting. He won't trust it. He'll think I'm police. You need to assure him I am private, very private. Tell him I have a vested interest in Mr. Harrison's," continued, "education." "Aptly put, sir." "Vince will agree because $500,000 in cash is better than breaking a gambler's legs. The first call he makes after he hangs up with you will be to Trevor. He'll want to know what's going on. He'll want to know who I am." "And Trevor," Julian added, "will have no answers." "Exactly, he'll be terrified, but he'll also be relieved. This is the miracle he was praying for. The bailout. He will come to the meeting, he'll drag Naomi with him. This is his one chance to fix everything. He won't let her stop him. Now make the call. I want this set for tomorrow, noon." The buzzing of the burner phone on the motel nightstand sounded like a fire alarm. Trevor and Naomi both jumped. "Is that him?" Naomi whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Is that Vince?" Trevor grabbed the phone. The same blocked number. His hand was shaking. He wiped his sweaty palm on his pants and answered, trying to sound casual. "Vince, listen, I just need more time. I swear, I'm working on it." A cold, gravelly laugh cut him off. "Shut up, Trevor. You're not going to believe this. You are you're just lucky." Trevor frowned. He sat up on the lumpy bed. What are you talking about?" "I just got a call," Vince said, and Trevor could hear the strange mix of amusement and suspicion in his voice. "From a guy, a real professional, name of Julian Wright. He says he represents your father-in-law." Trevor felt the blood drain from his face. "Isaiah? What about him?" "He wants to pay your debt, kid. All of it. $500,000. In cash." Trevor sank back onto the bed. He couldn't breathe. What? He wants to pay. How did he know?" "I don't know and I don't care," Vince said. "But here's the part I don't get. He says he wants a meeting. Tomorrow. At his lawyer's office. He wants you there. He wants the wife there. And he wants me there. He says he's bringing the cash in a briefcase. He wants to settle all family accounts." Trevor's mind was spinning. The old man, the broke mechanic. How did he know about Vince? How did he have $500,000 in cash? "Trevor," Naomi whispered, seeing the look on his face. "What is it?" "I don't know," Trevor stammered. "Vince, my debt. My father-in-law is going to pay it." Vince's voice crackled back on the line. "So here's the deal, kid. I don't know what game this old man is playing. I don't know if he's a cop or a fed or some kind of hidden whale. I don't care. $500,000 is $500,000. You and the wife, you're coming with me tomorrow, noon. If this is a trap, you're the bait. If it's real, you get to live. You understand me?" "Yes." Trevor said, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Yes, Vince. We'll be there. We'll be there." He hung up the phone. "He's paying," Trevor said, a slow, disbelieving smile spreading across his face. "The old fool is paying." "But how?" Naomi asked, grabbing his arm. "How does he have that money in Wacker Drive, Trevor? What is going on?" Trevor's confidence was surging back, replacing the cold fear. His gambler's mind was piecing together a new narrative, a new hand to play, one where he was the one holding all the aces. "Who cares?" Trevor laughed. He actually laughed. "Don't you see? It's exactly what I told you. He's just a sentimental old fool. He ran, he got scared, he thought about it, and now he wants his family back. He wants to buy us back. He's scared of us. Scared. Yes, he's terrified, he's alone, he's old, he's freezing the accounts to get our attention. And now he's offering to pay Vince to make his problem go away. He thinks I'm the problem. He doesn't realize he's the solution." As if on cue, an email notification pinged on Naomi's laptop. She opened it. It was from Julian Wright, Senior Counsel, the Wright Group. The subject line was simple: family meeting, Thomas Estate. "Look," Trevor said, pointing at the screen. "It's him, the lawyer." The email was formal, cold, and official. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, at the request of our client, Mr. Isaiah Thomas, you are formally invited to a family meeting to discuss and resolve all pending financial and personal matters. The meeting will be held tomorrow, November 7th at 12 o'clock noon at our offices. It gave an address on Wacker Drive, one of the tallest, most expensive buildings in Chicago. "My God," Naomi whispered. "This is real." "Of course it's real," Trevor said, pacing again, but this time with a swagger. "And it's even better than I thought. He's not broke. He's been lying to us. The old man, he's been sitting on a pile of money his whole life. That bungalow, it's just a front. He's been pretending to be poor that snake." His anger flared for a second, then vanished, replaced by a greedy smirk. "This is perfect," he said. "This isn't about $500,000. This isn't about a house. He's loaded. That's why he has a fancy lawyer. That's why he can snap his fingers and freeze accounts." "But Trevor," Naomi said, her voice shaking, "if he's so rich and powerful, why would he want to pay your debt? Why would he meet with us? He has us beat. He knows we lied." Trevor stopped and looked at her, his eyes gleaming. "Because, my dear, I still have one card he can't beat. One card he is terrified of." He walked over to his briefcase, the one sitting by the door, and clicked it open. He pulled out the document, the forged power of attorney. "He thinks he's in control," Trevor said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He thinks he's calling this meeting to resolve things. He's going to pay off Vince, and then he's going to wag his finger at us and tell us to behave. He's bringing all the players to his table." Trevor started to laugh. It was a high-pitched, ugly sound. "He's an idiot. He's just an old, sentimental fool after all. He's bringing us into the heart of his empire. He's bringing us to his own lawyer's office in front of witnesses, and he's going to try and negotiate. And we," Trevor said, waving the forged POA in the air like a flag of victory, "are going to walk in there. We are going to let him pay off Vince. We will thank him. We will be the perfect, loving, apologetic children. And then, when he's all relaxed, I am going to hand this paper to his fancy lawyer, and I am going to take everything." Naomi stared at him. The fear was gone from her face. It was replaced by the same cold, greedy calculation she'd had on the plane. "Trevor," she said, a slow smile spreading across her face, "you're a genius." "Tomorrow," Trevor said, kissing her hard, "tomorrow we get our lives back. Tomorrow we get rich, richer than we ever dreamed. The old man just made his last fatal mistake. He invited us in." The 40th floor of the Wacker Drive Tower felt less like an office and more like a cathedral. The conference room was quiet. The only sound was the faint hiss of the climate control. A single massive slab of dark mahogany served as the table polished to a mirror finish. One entire wall was glass overlooking the Chicago River as it snaked its way toward the lake. I sat at the head of that table. I was no longer wearing the worn flannel shirt and oil-stained jeans. I was wearing a custom-tailored Zegna suit, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe. It cost $5,000. It felt like armor. My hair, which I usually left to its own gray tangle, was neatly trimmed. My hands, the hands of a mechanic calloused and scarred, were clean. They rested steadily on the table in front of me. I was not a retired mechanic. I was Isaiah Thomas, and I was waiting. Julian Wright, my counsel, my fortress. My friend stood silently by the window, his arms crossed, looking down at the city. "They are on their way up, sir," he said, not turning, "with their guest." "Good," I said. My voice sounded different in this room, deeper, heavier. The elevator doors at the far end of the lobby chimed softly. I heard voices. Trevor's loud, trying to be jovial. "Vince, I'm telling you, this is just a family thing, a formality. We'll be in and out." And then a voice I had only heard on a recording, a voice like gravel and broken glass. "Just shut up and walk, kid." The frosted glass doors to the conference room swished open. Naomi and Trevor entered first, and they froze. They didn't freeze because of the view. They froze because of me. They stood there 2 feet inside the room, their cheap motel room confidence evaporating instantly. They were looking for the frail old man in the wheelchair. They were looking for the confused, grieving father-in-law they could manipulate. They did not expect to see me. They stared at my suit. They stared at the boardroom. They stared at Julian Wright, who turned slowly from the window to look at them with undisguised contempt. Naomi's hand went to her throat. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Trevor was worse. His practiced, smug look melted. His eyes darted around the room from me to Julian to the heavy, silent door behind him. He was calculating. He was panicking. He had walked into the wrong game. Behind them, Vince Moretti stepped in, flanked by his 2 massive bodyguards. Vince was a shark. He, unlike them, was not surprised. He looked at the room, at the suit, at me. And he nodded. A flicker of professional respect. He understood power when he saw it. He just hadn't known it was mine. "Sit down," I said. It was not a request. Naomi stumbled into a chair, her eyes never leaving my face. "Dad," she whispered. It sounded like a question. Trevor, trying to regain his footing, tried to force a laugh. It came out as a strangled cough. He slicked his hair back with a sweaty hand and sat down, trying to look casual. "Dad? Wow, you're looking great. Really sharp." Vince and his men took the chairs by the door, blocking the only exit. The trap was set. Trevor cleared his throat. He was here to play his trump card. He was here to take control. He placed his briefcase on the table, the one with the forged power of attorney. "Dad," he started, his voice a little too loud. "Listen, I know things they got out of hand. That whole thing at the airport. It was just a big misunderstanding. We were worried. You weren't yourself. We just wanted to help." He was still playing the part, the caring son-in-law. "We were just trying to get you to that wellness community, the one we researched, so you could rest." He looked at Julian. "And I'm glad we're all here. I actually have some legal documents, a power of attorney, just to help manage your affairs, Dad, to make sure you're protected since you're, confused." He was smiling. He actually thought he was winning. He thought he had me. I let the silence hang in the air. I let him bask in his own stupidity for one long second. Then I leaned forward. "A misunderstanding, Trevor?" I asked. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. His smile wavered. "Yeah, Dad, a simple misunderstanding." "Was it a misunderstanding when you forged my signature on that power of attorney? Or was that just paperwork?" Trevor's face went white. The blood just drained out of it. Was it a misunderstanding when you used that fake document to drain $50,000 from my savings account? Or was that just helping me manage my confused affairs?" Naomi let out a small, strangled gasp. She looked at Trevor. "You told me he gave you that money." Trevor ignored her. He was staring at me, his eyes wide with animal panic. How did I know?" I finished for him. "You think because I changed your diapers I couldn't check a bank statement? You think because I lived in a bungalow I was a fool? I knew you were stealing from me, Trevor. I've known for 6 months. I was just waiting. I was waiting to see how deep the rot went." I turned my head slightly to lock eyes with my daughter. "And then I found out about the rest of the plan." "Dad, no," Naomi pleaded. "It wasn't like that." "Wasn't it?" I snapped. "Let's talk about Sunset Vistas, that wellness community. A very pretty name for a legal slaughterhouse, don't you think?" Trevor was no longer breathing. "A place that specializes in rapid asset liquidation. A place that pays a finder's fee." I looked back at Trevor. His mouth was open, but no sound was coming out. $100,000, Trevor. That was the misunderstanding, wasn't it? The kickback you were getting for selling me. Trevor's face was a mask of pure confusion. He licked his lips, his eyes darting between me, Julian, and the heavy, silent presence of Vince Moretti at the door. "I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, his voice cracking. "A kickback, $100,000, Dad, you're confused. You're not well. That's why we were doing this, to help you." He was still playing the part, even now. "Confused," I repeated. I let the word hang in the air. "That's the word you love, isn't it, Trevor? The word you were going to use to lock me away." I looked at Julian. "Julian, they're here to talk about my affairs. Why don't we show them my affairs?" Julian, without a word, slid a slim, leather-bound portfolio across the mahogany table. It stopped perfectly in front of Trevor. "You went through all this trouble, son," I said, my voice dangerously soft. "You forged documents. You hired a private investigator to find me. You lied to your wife. You were willing to drug me and ship me to Arizona. All for what?" I tapped the portfolio. "Go ahead. Open it. See what you were really trying to steal." Trevor's hands were shaking. He fumbled with the cover. Naomi leaned in, her eyes wide. He opened it. The first page was a single sheet of paper, a balance sheet. It was titled, "Thomas Trust Holdings, Executive Summary." Naomi didn't understand it. It was just a list of numbers of LLCs, of holding companies. But Trevor understood numbers. He had gambled away $500,000 of them. His eyes scanned the page, trying to make sense of it, and then his gaze locked on the last line, the one at the bottom. Total net worth, $35, $400, $1,000. Trevor made a sound, a small choking sound, as if all the air had been punched out of his lungs. He looked at the paper. He looked at me. He looked back at the paper. "No," he whispered. "No, that's a mistake. A typo." Naomi grabbed the paper. She saw the number. "What is this? Is this a joke?" "That," I said, my voice like steel, "is $35,400,000. That is my net worth. The net worth of the broke old mechanic from the South Side, the man you were too embarrassed to bring your friends around." Naomi just stared, her mouth open. She looked like she had been slapped. "I've been lying about being poor for 40 years, Naomi," I said. "You've been lying about everything for 2. It seems my lie was just a little bit better." I leaned forward. "You were going to have me drugged, kidnapped, and imprisoned. You were going to let them liquidate my bungalow, my $400,000 bungalow." I let the number sink in, the small prize they had been fighting for. You idiot," I said to Trevor. "You went to war for the price of the garden shed." Trevor was sputtering, his face a mottled red and white. But, the POA I have." Julian stepped forward as if on cue. "You have a fraudulent document, Mr. Harrison, a felony, I might add, which is now in our possession." He placed a second document on the table. It was the contract from Sunset Vistas. "But we have more," Julian said. "Here is the finder's fee agreement. Your signature is at the bottom, your $100,000 bonus." I turned my full attention to my daughter. She was as pale as a sheet, her eyes fixed on the contract. "He sold me Naomi," I said, my voice quiet. "Like a piece of cattle. But you knew, didn't you? You knew it was a one-way trip." "No," she cried, finally finding her voice. "I thought it was a nice place. A resort I didn't... He said you'd be comfortable." "Comfortable?" I asked. "Is that why you were texting your husband about the sedative?" Julian, with perfect timing, placed the third document on the table. It was a printout, a sworn affidavit from Tiana, the flight attendant, and attached to it a copy of the text message log she had witnessed on Naomi's phone. Naomi's eyes locked onto the words. Her own words. I read them aloud for the whole room to hear, for Vince Moretti to hear, for his bodyguards to hear. "Trevor, are you sure the sedative will last the whole flight? I don't want him waking up and making a scene over Phoenix." Naomi let out a high-pitched animal sound of pure terror. She was caught. Completely and totally caught. "You were going to drug your own father," I said, "to ship him off to a place that liquidates old people, all for a house and $100,000. Trevor, seeing Naomi crumble, finally snapped. "You don't understand," he yelled, slamming his hands on the table. I had debts, Vince. I held up a hand. "Shut up, Trevor." I turned to Vince Moretti, who was watching this all with a bored, clinical interest. "See, Vince, this is the kind of man you're dealing with. A coward. A man who drugs old men and blames his wife." I turned back to Trevor. "But even that wasn't the real plan, was it? The $100,000 was just pocket change. The house was just a bonus." Trevor looked confused. "What are you talking about? That's all there was." "No," I said. "You're a gambler, Trevor. You don't go through all this trouble for a small score. You were playing for the big one." I looked at my daughter. Her face was streaked with tears and mascara. "He played you too, baby girl. He played you worst of all." "What does that mean?" she whispered. "Julian," I said. "The last document." Julian slid the final devastating paper onto the mahogany table. A $2 million life insurance policy. 3 months ago, I explained, Trevor here tricked me into signing this. He told me it was a DMV form for his car registration, a $2 million payout, payable upon my death, an accidental death, perhaps from a fall at a wellness community in Arizona, or maybe from being over-medicated. Naomi looked at Trevor, her face a mask of disbelief and horror. "Trevor? You were going to kill him?" "No," Trevor screamed. "Naomi, it was just security, in case something did happen for you. For our future. He was a terrible liar. Shut up, Trevor, I said again, my voice flat. Let me finish. You see, Naomi, you should read the fine print. You are listed as the primary beneficiary. If I die, you get $2 million. You would have been rich. Naomi looked confused. I don't, then. But Trevor here, I continued. He's not just greedy, he's sloppy. He listed a contingent beneficiary, a secondary one, in case, something accidental happened to you after you collected the money. I leaned forward and tapped the paper with one hard, calloused finger. Guess who, Naomi? She read the name. Her breath hitched. Contingent beneficiary Trevor Harrison. She turned slowly to look at her husband. The man she had betrayed her father for. The man she had planned to drug me for. The look on her face was no longer greed or fear. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. You were going to kill me, she whispered. The realization doused her like gasoline. You were going to kill my father, and then you were going to kill me. Trevor snapped. He was done. He was exposed. He had nothing left to lose. He stood up so fast his chair screeched backward and toppled over. He's lying, he screamed, his voice cracking. He's lying. It's all fake. This is a setup. He can't prove any of this. He pointed a shaking finger at Vince Moretti. Vince, he's trying to trick you. He's not going to pay you. He's just trying to get me in trouble. Vince just stared at him, unimpressed, and slowly shook his head. Trevor scrambled for his briefcase, the one thing he had left, the one card he thought was his ace. He ripped it open and pulled out the document he'd been clinging to, the forged power of attorney. It doesn't matter, he shrieked, waving the paper in the air. It doesn't matter what he says, I have this. This is legal. This document gives me control of everything. His $35 million, his house, his accounts. I am in charge, not him. He slammed the paper down on the table in front of Julian. Read it and weep, you glorified butler. I own him. Julian looked at the paper. He looked at Trevor. He looked at me. I just smiled. Julian picked up the forged POA. He didn't read it. He just slowly ripped it in half, and then in half again. Trevor's face was a masterpiece of confusion. What are you doing? That's a legal document. No, son, I said. That's a piece of paper. It's a very good forgery. I'll give you that, but it's worthless. Julian reached into his own pristine briefcase and pulled out a single thick file. He opened it. This, Mr. Harrison, Julian said, his voice dripping with ice, is the actual controlling document for the Thomas Trust. It was executed 10 years ago after Mrs. Thomas passed. It's ironclad. He turned the document around for Trevor to see. And as you can see, the sole trustee and executor of the $35 million is not you. It's not Naomi. It's me. I leaned back in my chair. You were never in control, Trevor, I said. You were just a mouse running around in a maze I built 40 years ago, and you just hit the last wall. Julian didn't even look at the torn paper. He simply brushed the pieces aside. Your document is a forgery. My authority is a legal trust executed 10 years ago naming me as the sole trustee of all $35 million. You were never in control, Trevor. You were just a mouse running around in a maze I built, and you just hit the last wall. Trevor's eyes were wild. He looked from me to Julian and then finally to the door. He was going to run. I saw the calculation in his eyes. He was going to bolt. Vince! He suddenly yelled, looking at the loan shark who had been silent this entire time. Vince, he's lying. He's trying to screw us both. Don't let him do this. He never finished the sentence. The heavy mahogany doors of the conference room swished open again. Trevor looked relieved for a split second. He must have thought it was security or maybe even the police. He would have preferred the police. It wasn't the police. It was the two massive bodyguards who had been standing outside Vince's office. The ones Vince had left behind. They stepped into the room, filling the doorway. They weren't wearing suits. They were wearing heavy work clothes. They looked like the kind of men who worked on the docks, the kind of men who could make a $500,000 problem disappear. Vince Moretti stood up slowly from his chair by the door. He adjusted his silk tie. He looked at me, then at Trevor. Well, Mr. Thomas, Vince said, his voice like gravel, this has been educational. I appreciate you inviting me, but this is a private family matter. We'll show ourselves out. Trevor scrambled to his feet. Vince, wait you're just going to leave. What about the money he promised to pay you? I stood up too. I walked slowly around the table until I was standing right in front of Trevor. He flinched, but I just looked at him. I did promise, Trevor, I said. I promised I would pay your debt, and I am a man of my word. Trevor's face flooded with a pathetic, desperate relief. You are Dad. Isaiah, I'm sorry. I knew you wouldn't let him. I cut him off. I am going to pay your $500,000 debt. I turned to Vince Moretti, and I am going to pay it with this. Here is your package. I gestured not to a briefcase full of money, but to Trevor. Vince Moretti stared at me for a long second. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled, a genuine shark-like smile of appreciation. He had just understood the transaction. Mr. Thomas, Vince said, extending a hand. It's been a pleasure doing business with you. No, Vince, Trevor whimpered, backing away. What does that mean, Dad? What did you do? The two large men moved. They didn't rush. They just moved. One on each side of Trevor. Vince, no! He promised cash! Trevor shrieked. He did, Vince said, walking toward the door. But this is better. You see, kid cash is just paper, but collateral. Collateral can work. And you, Trevor, you are going to work. No! Trevor screamed as the men grabbed his arms. He was a white-collar con man. He was soft. They lifted him like he was a child. Naomi, he shrieked. Naomi, help me. Dad, please, I'll do anything, I'll give it back. You don't have anything to give back, son, I said as they began to drag him out of the room. Vince paused at the door. He turned to me. My men will be escorting Mr. Harrison to one of my logistics warehouses down by the river. He's going to be auditing shipping manifests indefinitely until his debt is paid, with interest. We appreciate the business, Mr. Thomas. We'll be in touch. The doors closed. Trevor's screams echoed down the hall, getting fainter and fainter until they were finally cut off by the chime of the elevator. The room was silent again. There were only three of us left. Me, Julian, and Naomi. She was slumped in her chair. She hadn't moved. She hadn't tried to help him. She had just watched. Watched as her husband, the man she had conspired with, was dragged away by gangsters. She looked up at me. Her face was empty, devoid of tears, of anger, of anything. Just empty. Is it over? She whispered. No, I said. It's not. Julian stepped forward. He placed two documents on the table in front of her. This, Julian said, his voice formal, is a legal notification. Your father has formally disinherited you. You have been removed from the Thomas Trust, effective immediately. Naomi stared at the paper. She didn't seem surprised. She just nodded. And this, Julian continued, placing the second document on top of the first, is a permanent court-ordered restraining order. You are to remain no closer than 500 feet to Mr. Thomas, his residence, or his place of business for the rest of your life. This she felt. Her head snapped up. A restraining order, Dad, but I'm your daughter. No, I said, walking to the door. You were. Today you are just the primary beneficiary on a $2 million insurance policy, and I don't like those kinds of odds. I walked out of the conference room. I didn't look back. Julian followed me. We walked through the silent, expensive lobby. The receptionist smiled at us. We took the private elevator down 40 floors. The smooth descent felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. The lobby doors opened onto the bright, windy Chicago street. And there, waiting at the curb, was Tiana, the flight attendant. She wasn't standing next to a black sedan. She was standing next to a deep blue, brand-new Bentley Mulsanne. My car, the one I kept in the garage for special occasions. She smiled, a real warm smile. She wasn't wearing her flight attendant uniform. She was wearing a sharp professional suit. Good afternoon, Mr. Thomas, she said. She opened the heavy rear door for me. Julian called ahead. He said the meeting was successful. I paused before getting in. I looked up at the blue sky. I felt the wind on my face. I felt light. I reached into my suit pocket and pulled out a pair of sunglasses. Dark, classic. I put them on. The world looked sharper. "Are you ready, Mr. Thomas?" Tiana asked. "The board for the new Serena Thomas Foundation is waiting for its chairman." I smiled. A real smile. The first one in years. "I've been ready for a long time, Tiana," I said. "Let's go." This story teaches us a powerful lesson. Never mistake kindness for weakness, or a simple life for a simple mind. Isaiah built his quiet life as a shield, but his children blinded by greed saw it only as a target. They forgot that true power is not about the money you show, but the intelligence and character you hide. They planned to steal his possessions, but in the end, they only lost their family, their freedom, and their future. It proves that betrayal is a debt that always gets paid in full. What did you think of Isaiah's cold, calculated revenge, and which city are you listening from? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this story and want to hear more, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.